Hello and welcome to another wonderful episode of Glad You Asked. Today, I'm Jeff Henderson, footwear designer.
More important than that, you occupy the great space in New York City considered to be the Upper East Side.
Whoa,
That
yes,
puts you
yes,
in an
yes,
elite
yes.
category all onto its own.
It's the suburbs of Manhattan in Manhattan. And who are you, sir?
My name is John Lopez, and I'm a New York City-based sports photographer.
Not just now, correct me. You may live now in East Harlem, but you were born on Lower East Side. Is that how that works? Is that how that works?
Yes, indeed. LES, baby.
Okay. Down where our wonderful restaurants that we hang out. Shout out to Julio and B down at Il Bagato, Il Posto Acanto.
Yes,
all
sir.
good. Food's good. This is where you ball. It's all good.
Most amazing, you could fill in the blank. They got it.
Grilled calamari. That is, just go there, get the grilled calamari, and you're good. Everybody's in love with the lasagna, the cracatelli, everything else, but we're going
The cracatelli.
Yes,
I like how that's
yes. The cavatelli. Yes, they have T-shirts. They make things just for that. They make things just for that. Today on Glad You Asked. I'm glad you asked, John. Today we're going to talk about textures and Vectoraster. We're really going to talk about Vectoraster, but I want to show you on one of the shoes I'm working on how I'm going to upgrade the simple texture to something a little more. Maybe it's amazing, maybe it's not, but I'm about to show you how you make that happen.
Uh-oh.
So on the bottom of this shoe, we currently have these details where you see these circles. I kind of meant those as like a texture you'll have. And I'll show you. You'll get a little screen pop up here in the video where it'll say texture plates. And the idea is that you actually want to add details. On the Air Force Ones, there's stars on the toe. There's all these just adding that layer of dimension where people go, okay, it's not just flat and basic. And sometimes you want it flat and basic, and sometimes you want to add a little interest. Right now, I just have these details here that I would be perfectly fine with if that's where I ended. But I'm not quite sure, so I'm going to experiment with something a little more risque by doing something with a detail that floats around the whole shoe. And for that, I'm going to use a program called Vectoraster. So with Vectoraster, what I need is an actual file that shows where I want to place this image. So I'll take right here, part of the shoe, right here, that I'm going to use to show where I want these strange pieces to be. And I'm actually going to cover it up. So here, now it looks like there's nothing there. It's all white. It's just a screen there. And I have that in my new texture world. So that new texture, I'm going to actually use to create a file. And I have something I played with earlier. I'm going to show you that I know now that I have this space that I want to make some weird graphics and designs. So here, I need to create a JPEG to take in the file called Vectoraster. So I'm going to create a new page, a new artboard page, simply by clicking on that area right there.
I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, yeah. See, learn something new every day. Glad you asked. So now that I have this area here, the way Vectoraster works, and you'll see, you'll be able to play with it. You got to download it. I don't know, it may cost a little bit of money, but you'll find it's well worth it. Kind of like this ScreenFlow that I'm using to make this video. I'll go in and I use the gradient tool, and you want to use blacks and whites, makes your life easier. And I kind of want to drop there and there, and you'll see why. I want to create this path that goes
How'd
from
you just
toe.
switch from black to white?
Actually, I don't know what it did there. I don't know, actually. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to make that white. I don't want to take it that far. Actually, I want to take this one that far. I'm going to come in here.
And what are you looking for right now as you're building
So I'm
this
trying to create this path that goes from dark to light along the foot strike path. So you land here on your lateral side and you go through the middle of your foot and you actually go off your big toe. So I'm actually creating that path visually.
Is that how you dunked on guys at the Nike
campus?
That
I was about to lay up. I was about pulling up a 30 well before Steph, only because that's a long way to run sometimes, and that wasn't my game. So now that we've created this seemingly simple like path, and you know what? I'm going to add, just so we can see a little bit of detail that acts funky when we create this image.
That tool you're using, is that the gradient mesh tool?
That's the gradient mesh tool.
Mesh tool. Okay.
It has a U there. I'm sure John Lopez will find the
control
U when it's really called the command U, but I'll let John think he knows what he's doing. I'm going to play with a little bit of differentiation there. You know what? We're going to make this white just so you can see kind of what's going on.
So what you're doing is you're pretty much anticipating where the pressure points are on the foot.
Correct.
And making those parts darker. The
Correct.
lighter parts are where you might step a little lightly.
And
Got it.
so now that I have this, I also learned this from my good friend Sarah, who works at one of those companies in Oregon, not the one that I used to work at. She actually said, you know, Jeff, I was exporting things as a JPEG and the files were huge. And she was like, Jeff, you're super old. Why are you doing that? And I pressed some button I didn't mean to press, so I got to go back. I don't even know what happened there. Yeah, something went wrong. She said, Jeff, stop doing the export and do save for web. I was like, oh, save for web. So if you actually pick something in the artboard you want to use, and go save for web, now I use this religiously, it shows you how big the file is going to be. I'm at 39 kilobytes right now. I was saving things and they were like huge. So I get really tiny, but I can go to high quality, and that's really all I need for Vectoraster. So I'm going to save this in running cross sections. I'm going to call it running fade 2, just so I know where I might find it. It is a JPEG. And now I'm going to open up the powerful Vectoraster. So Vectoraster looks like such. And you know what? Let's just go with some presets to show you exactly what Vectoraster does. So Vectoraster takes this seemingly innocuous, I don't even know what the words are.
Innocuous.
It takes this fade and actually converts it into vectors. And you can choose whatever item you want to create that path. So you can do a custom shape. You can actually upload any shape you want. Strangely enough, if you want to get really difficult, you can actually put in letters. So you can see letters that fade through. We're going to stick with something simple as a polygon. And
Did you draw something within this application?
You don't draw within. You'd upload a different JPEG of just that little file, and you could have it in there. So you can make whatever shape you want. Crosses, circles, picture of a dog.
And they have to be saved as JPEGs to come in.
Save the JPEG. I think you can save them as PNG, maybe other files, but I typically use a JPEG. It lets you decide what the smallest one will look like, what the biggest one will look like. There's plenty of options. I usually just play with those. I actually go from a straight grid, alternating grid, depends on kind of what you're playing with. The big thing here is now I'm going to bring in, instead of the primary sources there, I'm going to go back to our running fade 2 that I just uploaded. Open that up. It brings it in. And as you can see now, I get a pattern. And now I may say, you know what, I want that pattern to be a little tighter. And maybe that's too tight. I want to see more of this. I'm not a fan of it radiating like that. I really just want to see it alternate. Uh-oh, I lost something there because I made the spacing too big. Uh-oh, technical difficulties here. All right, let's go back to fit. Uh-oh. Oh, somehow it moved everything off. So, uh-oh. Technical difficulties. What do we do, John Lopez? Here we go. So we get there. We have this alternating pattern. I want to make that slightly tighter. And now I want to take the minimum to 0. That way I don't have anything on the outside of this. The beauty of this is now I can export these vectors. Let's call it fade new as a PDF. And you can save it if you want. Typically, for some sad reason, I don't save because, you know, I'm perfect and I never will need it again if my computer crashes. I will now open the fade new as a file. And what happens is it brings it in. And while it may not look at it, I'll release the clipping mask. Those are all vectors, useful vectors that I can use. And it comes with a clipping mask, a box around it. So I'll delete that box around it. And now every one of these are separate. So I can go through and I usually A, want to group them. B, I want to change them to another color because I don't want to get them confused with anything else I'm working on. So now that I've made them some color, let's make them even brighter. I'll copy that and then paste it back in our file here. Line it up where we want. So I could say, you know what, that's the pattern I want, and that's what I need. Well, I can actually drop it in, and I can go through and hand drop them into every piece that I have. But I'm not. Again, for the factory's sake, I want to maybe give them those dots, but I'm going to drop it into my swatch tool. I'm actually just going to, for now, delete it. I can move it to the side. I can delete what was that, and I can go in, and I actually want to drop it in all, let's see. I want to make sure I'm getting the one with the lines.
This is looking like it's a setup for some magic happening right now.
So then I'm going to take both of these that have separate sort of details and textures and drop in this guy. Oh, and I want to make sure, if I start with a base of just the black and white, you want to reset to make sure life is sort of simple. I now have that pattern, and I'm going to hold down the tilde and move just what's happening on the inside. And now, what I get is that pattern just inside where I want it to be.
Mind blown.
So, again, it's just one of those tools that you kind of have at your leisure. And instead of having this really simple, the pattern doesn't really do anything, now I kind of have it moving kind of freely throughout the shoe in a way that looks, I guess, less cookie cutter, if that makes any sense. So it's not as boring. You actually get a little bit of detail and rhyme and rhythm. So just wanted to show you how Vectoraster works. Download it, play with it. You can do 10 times more than what I just did with it, but that was just sort of where I would start.
Now, is it showing, what we're looking at right here, is it only showing up inside some of those lugs, or is this showing up on the entire bottom of the shoe?
So it's showing up only in those two areas. If you look, those were the areas that I grabbed.
Yep. Gotcha.
And so if I were to make those all black, it's just there. So again, dropping them only into here.
And so you did that by first selecting those areas and then dragging the swatches you created from the Vectoraster file.
Correct.
Just brilliant.
So
is this, for example, on some of the Jordan sneakers, right? Like the Cement 3s where they have those spatter marks at the bottom, right? Is this how they do that?
So here's the scary part. Back then, there was no Vectoraster. There's two kind of things. One, a lot of the splatter is just random. You'll see like a lot of random hits. And I'll show you on screen when we actually make the full thing, is that some of them are random, but then you see like these really intricate designs that are like this swirl pattern that's done in a mold. And for most people, they go, oh, someone drew that was done by hand. And designers go like, whoa, like that was some computer tool that did. Vectoraster is like the generic tool that I remember when Rob Williams first showed me like forever ago. My mind was blown away. I think me and Casey Smith were like, whoa, what is that? But it was a way to control like where you put a perf pattern or how you put a texture. And again, most textures are already laid out in a texture plate, or you have to design them. And back in the day, just like I'm sure with you see things that are done in Photoshop that would have taken a photographer like hours, like working with film on a light tape, like getting it all set up. You just click two buttons and it's there. It's the same way with these gradient patterns that sort of move and shake. However you want Vectoraster to play, will sort of work out however you need it to be.
So you're saying in the days of yore, this kind of pattern was actually hand drawn?
Hand drawn. And it was usually just drawn as circles.
Wow.
And not because one, someone had to hand draw it, but then someone had to go into a computer program and actually draw them for the tooling to be built. So that person probably wasn't going to be as tight as the designer who spent like hours trying to figure out where all these dots went. So you added those two things up. Now, not only can I make these the most intricate piece of design that I could possibly think of, but I can export directly that file. So they have those dots again, right there, and they can use these vectors as is and drop them into their file and not worry about redrawing it. They may have to center it and move it based on how the engineering file moves around, but the reality is now they have it. And by the way, when you then go to render items, you already have, get rid of the bounding box. You can then play with these colors till your mind goes crazy. So, and that's something we'll talk about later on, because when I do a lot of rendering, I'll render just in monochrome grayscale, and then I'll layer colors over top of it, so I don't end up having to recolor the entire shoe over and over with different shades and fades and things like that.
So many things to look forward to. I'm glad you asked. So many things.
Thank you, as always, for joining us. This has been Glad You Asked Out Today. You can got any questions, hit us at yo@GladYouAsked.today. And anybody who I stole all these details from, please don't email me and complain that I didn't give you credit, because I picked up the skills where I picked them up. Just sharing them with everybody else.
You can also follow us on Instagram. Holler at us at GladYouAsked.today as well. Check us out. Peace.